You know that feeling like you're just a passenger in your own life? It's like you're being pulled in 100 different directions by what everyone else needs, what everyone else expects. And your own voice? It's just a whisper you can barely even hear. So today, we're going to gently explore why that happens and what it really means.
So let's sit with this for a moment. Think about it. When you have a decision to make, doesn't matter if it's big or small, or when any feeling starts to bubble up inside you, whose voice is the one you hear? Whose approval are you really looking for? And on the other side of that, whose disappointment are you quietly, deeply afraid of? The answer to that, well, that's often the key to all that chaos we feel inside.
So this internal conflict, right, this quiet little battle of voices in your head, it usually shows up in our lives as this constant, draining chaos. And it probably looks something like this. You've got your own list of things you need to do, your own desperate need for just 5 minutes of peace. But the second someone asks you for something, your whole world just stops. Saying no, it feels impossible. Even just thinking the words "not right now," that can feel so incredibly selfish.
And, this goes so much deeper than just a to-do list. It's really about your entire internal world. You learn, over time, to just sacrifice your own peace, your energy, even your own quiet journey of learning and growing. And why? All because you've been conditioned deep down to believe that your most important job is to keep everyone else comfortable. And what happens on those rare occasions when you do follow that little spark of your own? Maybe you finally sit down to read a book you love, or you get really excited about some new hobby. And then suddenly, that genuine interest, it gets hit with a label. It's called natanki, or maybe just drama. Your passion is just dismissed, like it's all just a performance. Does that sound familiar at all? Because it's a really subtle but incredibly powerful way that we're taught to doubt the very things that make us who we are.
So you have to wonder, what is really going on here? Is something wrong with you? Is it some kind of personal failing or maybe a lack of strength? Well, the truth is, it has almost nothing to do with your character, and it has everything to do with a story, an invisible script that you were handed a long, long time ago.
All right, let's really dive into this idea. See, at the very root of this whole struggle is something we call your self-image. But here's the part that changes everything. It is not an accurate photograph of who you are. Not at all. It's much more like a story that was written for you by other people, a role you were taught to play so well that you eventually forgot you were even acting.
So this self-image, or as we might say in Urdu, your apni bare mein guman, which I love because it translates to something like the suspicion you hold about yourself, it's this really deep, quiet belief that directs your every single move. You weren't born with it, no. It was built piece by tiny piece, by all the reactions, all the words, and maybe most powerfully, all the silences you experienced as a child.
And this is the profound and honestly kind of heartbreaking truth of it all. If that internal script of yours is quietly whispering, "My needs always come last," then the world around you, it just reflects that right back at you. It's not some big conspiracy, it's a mirror. People are simply responding to the invisible signals you've been taught to send out your entire life.
So you have to ask, right? Where does a script like that even come from? Well, for so many of us, the very first draft was written way back in a childhood where love and approval, they felt less like the air we breathed and more like something we had to earn, day after day after day.
And this brings us to a really critical distinction. The problem isn't always that you have low self-esteem. It's that your self-esteem is contingent. That means it depends on something outside of you. Your sense of being a good, worthy person gets tied to your performance. Did you get the good grade? Were you a quiet, good girl? Did you do exactly what you were told? And so your worth, it becomes this moving target that you can never, ever quite hit.
Just think about these two different worlds for a second. In one world, your worth is unconditional. Love is just a constant. It's the foundation you stand on. And that allows you to explore, to make mistakes, and to build a sense of who you are from the inside out. But in the other world, your worth is conditional. Love is a reward. It's a prize for being obedient, for achieving, for making other people happy. And because of that, it has to be constantly re-earned, which creates a lifetime of anxiety and people-pleasing.
And right here, this is where the danger lies. Because when everything, from screen time to a parent's actual affection, is used as a tool to manage behavior, the deepest message a child absorbs is that love, the one thing they need to survive, can be taken away at any moment, the second they step out of line. So what is the true cost of that? What's the long-term price we pay for learning that our main goal in life isn't to be our authentic selves, but simply to be good?
Well, the consequences just ripple out through a person's entire lifetime. Think about it. A child who is only praised for being obedient doesn't just magically become a thoughtful, independent adult. No, they often become an adult who is absolutely terrified of making a mistake, because in their world, mistakes have always meant the withdrawal of love. They struggle to make their own decisions because they've never ever been taught to trust their own judgment. And they can't set healthy boundaries because that inner script tells them that saying no is the one thing that threatens their connection to others.
And that right there, that reveals the huge paradox in this whole approach. The very control that's meant to make a child make good choices is the exact thing that robs them of the chance to develop the inner muscle to choose for themselves. You just don't learn how to navigate the complexities of life by only following a map that someone else drew for you.
I know. Hearing all of this can feel really heavy. But if this is sounding like your story, please know that the next chapter isn't about blame. It's about a gentle, compassionate journey. A journey back to that voice you were taught to ignore. It's about finally rewriting your own script.
Okay, but the most important thing to hear right now is this. Changing this script is not a two-day game. This is not a quick fix. What you're doing is gently, so gently, untangling years, maybe even decades, of deeply ingrained conditioning. And that requires an incredible amount of patience and self-compassion. This is true for you, the adult trying to heal, and it's just as true for any parent out there who's trying to break these generational cycles with their own children.
So where do we even begin? Well, we start small. Very, very small. First, instead of just absorbing a label like drama, maybe just get a little curious. You could gently ask, "Can you help me understand what you mean by that?" You see, you're not starting a fight, you're just creating a little bit of space between their word and your reality. Second, just start listening to your own inner world. When you feel tired, just notice it, acknowledge it to yourself. I feel tired. That's it. You don't have to do anything about it yet. And finally, practice one tiny, tiny act of self-worth. Maybe it's just finishing your cup of coffee before you jump up to help someone else. It's these small, consistent choices, they're the ink you'll use to write your new story.
Now we just want to take a moment to acknowledge where these ideas come from. This entire explainer is based on a session by Sobia and Noreen, and her work is deeply inspired by the ideas of Alfie Kohn on unconditional parenting.
So as we close out our time together, I'd like to leave you with a question to just carry with you. What is one story from your childhood that you might still be telling yourself today? One line from that invisible script. Because just recognizing the story, that is the first and most powerful step toward finally writing your own.